Are we cope with that? Okay, I'd like to move just a precedence of business that we deal with item number tennis at this time. We deal with number. You happy to move the precedence of business? We'll deal with item. Oh, hang on. Just tie hold item 11. Councillor Walker will move that we deal with item 11 at this time. I will second that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So we'll move to item 11 and invite our staff to come forward. Thanks, Lee and Sharon and Base. So we'll just, I know people are keen to do this, but we will just go through some of the basics of the issue we're dealing with. Thank you, team, for stepping up. Right, over to you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for fitting us in this notice. As you said, this is a pleasant and different subject. Just to acknowledge the presentation from the Chair and CEO of Auckland Tennis earlier in the day, so you've got some context, members have some context. The purpose of the report to you today is to obtain confirmation from the Committee of the Grant for grant allocations to Auckland, to Tennis Auckland region for the proposed staged redevelopment of the ASB Tennis Arena. And today we're seeking approval for supporting stage 1 of the redevelopment. As you may know, the funding for both tranches of funding were firstly $3 million, went through the 2012 L2P process, so that funding has been accrued, and the remainder $2.5 million, making up the total of $5.5 million, was coming from the former Community Facilities Fund. So that funding is in the budget and approved. The main purpose of the redevelopment is the replacement of the stands, and in particular bringing seating up to 3,500 seats, and most importantly that's to meet the minimum requirements of the Women's Tennis Association and the Association of Tennis Professionals, and in particular to retain the capacity of the venue for the event in Auckland. Just the Domain Committee has made a decision in terms of approving the redevelopment, subject to approval from this committee for the funding. The Domain Committee also recommended that you members can approve the funding for the redevelopment. The total cost of stage 1 of the redevelopment is $19.7 million, and we're recommending to you today for investing $5.5 million as that total cost. So a reasonable return on investment and partner investment with other significant community funders and Auckland Tennis themselves. Tennis is seeking approval for $5.5 million grant. That will go to the redevelopment of both the South Stand in 2021 and the West Stand in 2019, as you heard from Marcus, to be completed by November. And the later stages of development, due to affordability, wouldn't occur until between 5 and 10 years away. Today, the staff recommendation is that you do confirm the grant funding and the investment in the tennis arena in 2 stages, stage 1A of $2 million and stage 1B of $3.5 million. And I just refer members to paragraph 18 in the table that outlines the various funding investment already occurred and grant funding that's already occurred from other partners. I would note, however, and as noted by the Chairman, Auckland Tennis do have funded a proportion of $1.1 million as an overdraft fund currently. We have taken that into account and recommended the split of the grant funding for stages 1A and stage 1B. As I've mentioned, the funding is accrued and budgeted, so take you to paragraphs 57 and 58, which confirm that in 2 tranches. The final couple of things I'd mention, Madam Chair, are that we this funding will also be subject to a funding agreement that, for my approval, so that we manage in the correct way how we release that funding based on approved plans and other funding being available and confirmed. Well, the last thing really to mention is tennis, and Marcus mentioned this. Auckland region, the Auckland Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan, the project aligns to that strategic action plan in that it provides fit-for-purpose facilities, sustainable community sport programs, and I'll mention these in a minute, and showcases sport and recreation events in Auckland, which I think everyone would agree the ASB Classic does at the arena. And in terms of the code plan for the sport, for tennis in Auckland, the redevelopment of the Auckland Tennis Centre or arena is the #1 priority in that code plan. So it aligns in that respect. It is also so important, I think, to mention the contribution that tennis and the revenue from the ASB Classic and therefore the utilisation of this facility as a fit-for-purpose facility provides across Auckland. And I know the Chair and CEO mentioned the 3 tennis centres across Auckland, Glen Innes or the Scarborough Tennis Centre, the Manukau Tennis Centre and Nicholson Park. So 9,500 primary school aged children benefit from the programs that are run across Auckland, 8,400 members for Auckland Tennis, servicing 52 clubs and 1,264 inter-club tennis facilities, not facilities, but events. And I think importantly supporting women and girls, but boys and girls equally across the sport. The very last thing is just the economic benefits of tennis, and Marcus mentioned these, but the report on economic benefit is just 11.95 million to Auckland for the ASB Classic event, and a significant media reach across 24.5 million people. The equivalent cost in advertising to the order of $62 million. So showcasing Auckland, showcasing the city and the region and events we hold here is significant. I'm happy to take questions, Madam Chair.
I'll just check. I think Councillor Simpson, you wanted to move this, but you have a question. Okay, so let's do questions. Councillor Simpson, Watson and Cooper.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, it's great to have something that's already got budget and it's already set, and it's just about figuring out how it works. But my question is financial, because Auckland Tennis say that they only got 3 weeks' notice that they weren't going to get this funding split in a different way. And for them, that obviously has some constraints. So my question is, how did that happen? Because if I go back to the minutes of the Domain Committee, which legislation allows the Domain Committee to approve $2 million, right? The Domain Committee could have approved that $2 million for 1A, but it's sort of put together for the 5.5 and it's coming here. And I think actually its right place is here. I don't deny that. So I'm actually just wondering why we're not going, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying change it to 4 and 1.5. I'm saying you could even do it for 2.5 and 3, just so it gave more financial credits to the legislation around the Domain Committee, the reason for bringing it here. And we're going to give them 5.5 anyway. So I'm just struggling with the way that you've put the financials together. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Simpson. Madam Chair, what we're doing is, in terms of best practice, this is money already invested by Auckland Tennis, so we haven't seen what that investment is, so we're not recommending that you fund that $1.1 million that you've taken out an overdraft for. However, if it is your choice to have a different funding split. So my understanding from Auckland Tennis is they've taken an overdraft out for in the order of 1.1. So you could do a split, for example, of 3 million in stage 1A and 2.5 million in stage 1B. But that would still be subject to Auckland Tennis demonstrating that all of that circa $1 million has been spent on the project, and they would have to demonstrate that.
Supplementary, Madam Chair, I would quite like if I just want to hear what my colleagues think around that, because my understanding is that there'll be because they're doing that, there's $1 million less of community investment. That's why I asked the question at the time. And I would hate to see, I mean, their community investment is in the likes of GI and places that potentially don't have that ability. So if the funding's already approved in its entirety, and it is, and it's just a matter of splitting it a little bit better, and if we split it in a slightly different way, 3 and 2.5, we don't lose that extra money, we don't lose that community investment. Would that not be a better split?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, this isn't a loss of investment of, I don't disagree with Councillor Simpson, but an investment of $1 million. This is an overdraft facility, so it's the servicing of that $1 million that would potentially be the loss to community investment.
Just in response to Councillor Simpson's question, which I understand is just a timing issue, is that an option?
That's an option, Madam Chair. We would still have a funding agreement which would provide surety to the council that the $3 million was being spent on the redevelopment and not other works.
So if that's the case, do you have a seconder for this?
Yes.
Mr. Councillor Walker, would you be happy to?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you very much.
The rest of us will catch up on the recommendation.
So, yeah, I mean, Councillor Lee, you understand. Sorry, I won't talk.
No, I think why don't we just make sure we've got the wording right, Councillor? So if we just take a moment, if you want to just work with the staff on how we might reshape that, why don't we take? I've got Councillor Watson, Cooper, and then Walker and Simpson, but I think let's go Watson and Cooper and Fletcher, and then we'll go from there. So, Councillor Watson.
Okay, thanks. My question goes to any possible funding agreement that council might enter into, and what might be in that funding agreement. The overall package here is for, although crucial, for a relatively small increase in the number of seating, 617 people, which enables them, therefore, to maintain that circuit. My concern goes to the provision of shading, and I heard the presenters today saying that they were going to have a temporary type of cover at the western stand and the southern stand, with the proviso that a permanent fixture could also be added in time. So I would think, in terms of the spectator experience and the value for money, it would seem to me to be bordering on the wasteful if you went to all that investment and you're leaving people getting cooked in that sun, as significant numbers of people, the public, do each and every ASB. Fine if you can afford to go in the Robinson stand. For all the other poor souls, it can be quite an unpleasant experience. It's not the concrete, it's the sun. So very verbose, but just saying, are we going to be able to insert in some shape or form that undertaking that the gentleman who presented today gave?
Madam Chair, we can certainly take it up with Auckland Tennis and give that priority. I would just note, Councillor Watson, that I certainly acknowledge the impact of sun on people and the enjoyment of the experience of watching the game, and also the health issues. So that would, these would be temporary arrangements for shade. This stage 3 provides the proposed stage 3 unfunded of $11 million, today's dollars, provides the ultimate in shade, but we can include that.
Which could be quite some time on.
Could be some time on.
Just very reserve the right to speak very briefly.
Perfect. Okay, Councillor Cooper.
already in the budget. It's good. I just was with that movement of bringing forward $1 million. I suppose as long as that doesn't take $1 million away from somebody else. The other thing I just want to, I also am concerned about creep now. It's the next thing, and for me it's just, this is one group of people, but a lot of people across the region don't go to tennis. So my question is around the managing of we know that Mr. Redshaw is very good at managing our grants and loans to people. So is he going to be as ever vigilant as he usually is what I want to know. I want to know this is a watertight agreement and it's managed very tightly.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We can say no.
Just got a few quick questions. I asked the question earlier when Marcus was presenting around business cases and market research, and my understanding is that this is a very robust case and it's been in the pipeline for a while. I just wanted you to confirm that.
Councillor Walker, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have viewed the business case and feasibility study from 2013, and the assumptions still hold for this investment.
And the other question I've got just goes to the way we're treating this. So this is a grant, not a loan, and that accords with our policies and strategy around this area?
Certainly, Madam Chair, this is an investment through a capital grant. And so, as I mentioned, it does align with the Tennis Sport Code Plan as their number one priority. It also aligns with the Auckland Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan.
And the other question I've got just goes to the economic benefits. And I note that there's a mention here around this. I would have expected that we might have more reporting on the part of ATEED. I mean, I'm comfortable at this point in time, but I am certainly interested in accelerating the provision of the retractable roof, and it would be very useful to have the engagement of ATEED as it goes to that, because I'd suggest that there's another business case that needs to be put together around that would be useful. So is that possible?
I wonder, Councillor, if we asked if this is that bit of creep that Councillor Cooper was raising. I think we may be best to stick to the item in hand, which is the request from the Auckland Tennis Association. They've applied for the grant. We're dealing with that. If people wish to discuss things further, that can come back to us. So I understand your enthusiasm, but given our exceedingly limited budgets, let's actually just land this one and worry about the rest later.
Chair, I mean, the reason that I raise this as someone that goes to this tournament every year, the women's and the men's, the issue of rain is significant. There is some urgency around this, and that goes to, frankly, what is a status tournament in New Zealand that hits the international scene. So there is some urgency around this, and I would suggest that ATEED could be engaged sooner rather than later.
I'm sure those discussions happen. It's the financing thereof that are the problem. Councillor Simpson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move this. Look, it's not a matter...
Why don't we do it the other way around? Sorry, because you will close the debate. So if that's speaking to it, so why don't I invite Councillor Watson to speak to it? Anyone else who wants to speak to it? Councillor Fletcher, question.
And it sort of follows on behind Councillor Cooper, but Lee Redshaw is known for his extraordinary detail in partnerships and these sorts of funding arrangements. I just really want to know, and I've followed this for quite some time, and I can see risks in delaying the development, but are there any risks that you have not drawn to our attention?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, I think that we've drawn all the risks to your attention that we are aware of at this stage, and it's primarily around timing of funding are the major issues. And I take on board the expectations on me from the councillors, and I think that I will be ever vigilant to making sure that those things are addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Just further to that, we've got a $20 million budget, 11.4 here from other funders, 5.5 from us. How much of that 11.4 is currently locked and loaded, and how much is yet to be raised or confirmed by the other funders?
Just why Mr. Ridshaw gives that some thought. Stage 1A is largely funded. It's stage 1B that is we're yet to get complete confirmation of. I would comment that getting action on stage 1A will open up conversations that Tennis indicated to you to develop more detailed conversations with funders for stage 1B.
So I think, Madam Chair, that might be a bit of a risk, having talked to the chair of the trust yesterday, that there's concern that some of the philanthropy around this from social agencies is getting a little more difficult. But we are giving them a very good start, and the extra $1 million will help for sure.
Yep. And that's, Madam Chair, that's why we're suggesting 2 tranches, stage 1A and B.
It's a safe option. I've got Councillor Filipaina and then Watson and Simpson, and then we'll put the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Look, firstly, I didn't hear a definitive answer in regards to the changes around D, so I may have forgotten. So there's no issue with the changing of the 3 million and the 2.5 as per the original or officer's recommendation on D?
Madam Chair, no, there's no issue. You can make that decision. Our recommendation was 2 million, but we've taken on board what Auckland Tennis has told us this morning.
And so therefore then, as a result, would B and C need to be changed?
No, that funding's already loaded. The split of that funding, it doesn't need to be changed, Councillor.
Okay, that's what I'm... Okay, cool, thank you.
Probably just, look, you asked for declarations before, Madam Chair, and I didn't really think of this item, but I was offered tickets to the Classic earlier on. I understand they're several $100s, those tickets. I declined them, but I think it would be good for this body and other bodies, and probably this is a message for the Chief Operating Officer, take back to the Chief Executive, for these organisations to actually declare where they have offered tickets ahead of an item like this. I feel really uncomfortable. So that is just something I want to have followed up, please.
No, I think that's a fair point, and councillors should all be filling out their declaration of interest forms, and this should be freely and publicly available, as these things usually are. Right, Councillor Bartley, question or talking to the recommendation?
Question.
Either or, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I'm just, is there any way that we can ask more of them about what they do to be part of the communities that they're placed in and have more reach? I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of these organisations, we give them millions. I've never heard of them, or they're, there's not much diversity going on with who they're reaching or where they're reaching. And I'd also be keen on a list of all these organisations that seem to get a lot of money like this for facilities. And are we missing out on, what other groups are out in our communities that are missing out because they don't know how to lobby or have the means to do stuff like this and come in and get $5.5 million? Thank you.
What I would note, Madam Chair, Councillor Bartley, is that we do, Tennis as a charitable organisation does deliver that significant community sport, but I take on board the diversity points that you're making, and we can have an influence through that, through their code plans, and that's
as well.
Okay, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just at the outset, there are declaration of interest. I paid $25, which was the cheapest, to the outer court. In fact, I paid $75 because I had to pay for my son and daughter to watch the tennis. It was an incredibly uncomfortable experience. I got roasted by the sun and ended up putting a towel over my head like some poor homeless person that had come down from the domain, hence my pursuit of some sort of cover there. I just want to very quickly make a couple of comments. I'm happy to support this request. It has a business plan. It is bringing in other funds. It is the consequence of previous decisions through the long-term plan and agreements in principle, and it has kept to those commitments in terms of dollar sum. So it's not going up 800% like some of the applications are before us. In terms of the experience of Aucklanders, it will be adding to the number of people that can go along and watch, not reducing by half the number like other applications. In terms of the spectator experience, which is referred to in some of our venue development strategies of enhancing that, it will do that, especially if that coverage is put on, albeit on a temporary basis until a permanent one can be put in. It will therefore be consistent with the notion that that a basic expectation is that these facilities are covered. That's made with respect of rain, but I would suggest sun is actually more important now, where we have one of the highest, if not the highest rate of melanoma in the world. We have young kids going along to watch. That is absolutely, you cannot do that in a school. You cannot let children go to a school and in a play area that's not covered now. Some of the more progressive local boards are covering their public playgrounds. Again, that is in contrast to another application before us at Western Springs, which will be 95% uncovered. So that's quite a contrast, I would suggest. In terms of the council involvement, I appreciate then, Mace, that we will be monitoring that, not just giving the money and leaving them to it, that there are some expectations here, and that will be one of them. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for officers for bringing such a detailed and helpful analysis of the money and what we will be getting in return for that money.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I've still got the picture of you with the towel on your head.
It wasn't pretty, I can tell you that.
And finally, Councillor Simpson, you'll close the debate.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it very, I think Councillor Watson has said a lot of the good points. So I just want to move this. The money, my understanding is they were told it was going to be $4 million in the first, and that was reduced to 2. So 3 is like the happy medium. The money's there. There's no extra money. There's nothing missing out. But it just actually puts everything, I think, in an open and transparent and a bit of place. So I'm happy to move, and we have a seconder, and over to you for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, Councillor, you'd already spoken and I had ticked you off, and Councillor Simpson has now closed the debate. So I think we've probably... Well, okay, very quickly, Councillor. She has officially closed the debate, so
really
we're just
quickly.
opening
So
for you.
Just want to emphasise that this is not just a facility that caters for an international and national event. It's also the place that people aspire to that play throughout New Zealand. Tennis is a sport that deals with all ethnicities, Māori, particularly many migrants, Chinese, Korean, others. I was at an event for Chinese tennis the other day. It has really low entry. The business cases are excellent. If you're talking about a location, this ticks the boxes around transport, business activation in the CBD. It's in the centre of the catchment. So it's a wonderful location. It makes every sense. It does concern me that there is this notion that we have to declare things. I don't receive any tickets, but I certainly donate to tennis, or certainly my family does, and not in considerable amount. So where are we going to stop this kind of discussion? Where does it end? I think that we don't need to go there. That's my view.
Awesome. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Well done and good work, and thank you for the thorough interrogation of that issue. And Lee, we look forward to your vigilance on this. We will break until 10 past 1 and see you all back enthusiastically for our regional pest management plan discussion.